Actually, when I went to the Soviet Union, the CIA, I had been working with them in West Germany. They had provided me with a laser sharp fiberglass knife.
Huh.
It was actually Lexus, so it was as hard as steel.
Oh, wow.
That was the only weapon I had. Never had to use it, but it was the only weapon. And with the make of it, you could walk through security. Nobody picked it up.
Oh, wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.
That's me, Tiberius.
And welcome to the Tiberius Show today. And I'm your host, Tiberius Boy. And as always, we're looking at various jobs and how they affect the world around us. Now, today's guest had a job that sounds like it came straight out of a spy movie. So you know what? Imagine traveling behind the Iron Curtain during the World War, gathering secrets, dealing with Soviet officials, and even having the KGB trying to question you. Yeah, this isn't a video game mission. This actually happened. Well, today's guest became an international spy, collecting information that ended up helping the United States. But here's the wild part. Before all of that spy stuff, he was also involved in the Olympics, competing in bobsled and later coaching the United States team. Please welcome the one, the only, the amazing Norman Miller!
Well, great to meet you.
Well, it's nice to see you too. Alright, well, thank you for being on the show today.
You're welcome.
Alright, so Norman, you've lived a life that sounds like a movie. First things first, for kids that have no idea, what exactly is an international spy?
Well, international spies that actually work for the CIA are actually trained specifically for that work. In my particular background, I was not trained as a spy. I just sort of fell into it, sort of. We were actually spying on equipment for the Bobsled Federation with foreign countries at the Olympics to improve the aerodynamic flow of our bobsleds. And the man that was with me that had asked me to do it was a very famous person. He had retired from Ford Motor, but when he was with Ford Motor, he designed the original Ford Mustang. Retired from Ford and went to work for Syracuse University teaching design and art, and decided that he wanted to volunteer and help create better bobsled designs for the Americans.
Alright, so that's not like an official job title or something that happens because of the situation you're in?
It was, yes.
Oh.
So his concern about creating better designs was in the automotive business. You take pictures and you make models 1/10 scale to keep putting them in wind tunnels because it's much cheaper. So when we were in West Germany during the Olympic trials for Calgary, he would go up to an American sled from a very long distance. I had a very, very large telephoto lens. He would rub a section on the bobsled, and that told me whatever country he went to, he wanted me to photograph that particular spot close up. And then he would walk to maybe the East Germans or the Soviets or the Swiss, and as soon as he would walk in, they would all gather in front to block his view. He would smile, nod his head, they would nod, he would walk away. And when they thought he was far enough away, they would walk back, and I was leaning against the window door with a very heavy-duty telephoto lens, and I would photograph that particular spot.
Oh, wow. So how does someone even get involved with espionage work? Like, is there a training program?
No. So what happened is prior to that, when we were at the Olympic trials in West Germany. We had East and West Germany back then. The first day at the bobsled track, a man came up to me, introduced himself, said he was Canadian, but from a British radio station, and he wanted to know if he could interview me. And I said, sure. So he did an interview and then left. The next day, he came back, did another interview. And on the third day, he did another interview. And then finally, he said to me that the British radio station wanted him to go into East Germany and interview a Soviet bobsled coach who had defected into East Germany, sold to East Germans confidential information that was a secret for the Soviet Union. And he was going to go over and interview him, and he wanted to know if I would be willing to go if they paid me, because it would enforce his purpose. So we had Mondays off, so I thought, well, I'd like to see what East Germany is like, and I did. Well, we actually made 5 trips in 5 weeks, and it only took a couple to figure out he was actually with the CIA. And the question that I never was able to figure out was why he was interested in the East German coach.
So at what point did you realize that this work was dangerous?
On the second trip.
All right, so what's the best part about being an international spy? Is it like the travel perks?
Well, I think the best part is I was actually active duty Air Force, and the best part is you're obtaining information your government can use. And the information that I ended up using, this coach, when he went to East Germany, had actually developed. And then he returned to the Soviet Union, which was a death sentence for him. They eventually executed him when we were over there. But he went back, and what happened was he had created the method of adding an alloy composite to steel to reduce friction on water and ice. So remember the cars built at a 10th scale because of cost? They were using bobsled runners because the cost to do that was much cheaper than using it on a ship. And so they were experimenting, and they were building this in an airplane factory in Riga, Latvia. And the reason they were doing it in Riga, Latvia is because Latvia had the only bobsled program in the whole Soviet Union.
So do spies spend most of their time collecting information or avoiding getting caught?
Survival. Survival rather than avoid getting caught. Same thing, but there is a difference.
All right. So was there ever a time where you were scared that you didn't want to be a spy anymore?
I never really had time to think about it. When the walls began to fall and the KGB in the middle of the night was trying to pick me up, it became a survival situation. So you don't really think about other things. You think about, where do I go? Who do I trust? How do I get out of the situation I'm in? How do I get out of the Soviet Union?
Yeah, so now we see in the movies like James Bond has like access to like tons of toys and loads of money and gadgets. Did you get access to cool supplies and like some high-tech gadgets or no?
No. The only thing I got close to is thinking how to survive. That's the realistic part of it. Actually, when I went to the Soviet Union, the CIA, I had been working with them in West Germany. They had provided me with a laser sharp fiberglass knife. It was actually Lexus, so it was as hard as steel. That was the only weapon I had. Never had to use it, but it was the only weapon. And with the make of it, you could walk through security. Nobody picked it up.
So, Norman, one of the most incredible moments in your story happened at a press conference in Latvia. A Soviet official made a public statement about Latvia possibly breaking away from Moscow's control. That sounds like a huge moment in history. Did you realize how important that moment was at the time?
Absolutely not. And when the person who was a TV broadcaster, he was equivalent to Tom Brokaw in America. He was a very big TV personality, and they flew him in from Moscow to a very small area. But we did not know that. But afterwards, it would be very obvious. Why would the Soviets be sending somebody like him? And I never really followed their politics, but their politics are probably the same as ours. And they knew in the background what potentially could happen. And when the man stood up, prior to him asking me questions, other journalists were asking me typical sports coach questions. Then all of a sudden he stood up and he said, "Mr. Miller, since 1940, when Russia occupied Latvia, the Latvian socialist state has never conducted business on its own without first seeking permission from Moscow. My question to you is this. As an American, did it bother you to avoid Moscow and deal directly with the Latvian socialist state?" Now, I was sitting there looking at him just exactly the way you and I are looking at each other. And I suddenly had to stand. And from the moment I was sitting to the time I stood, my thoughts had to be very clear and not revealing. And I said to him, "No," and I will explain why. In my country, anytime I deal with a foreign government, I must inform my government, which I did. I'm not familiar with your government, and I left that to the Soviet bobsled organization. He thanked me. I sat down. My mind is racing. Did I say something wrong? Should I have said something else? I was very comfortable with what I said, that they could not interpret it in a different way. He then repeated the question to Delma Zegnies, who was the Minister of Sports for the Soviet Union. And he shocked me. He stood up and they repeated the question. He said, "I did not invite Mr. Miller." He said the Latvian socialist state debated for 3 months on how they should invite him. And he said the decision was made for Latvians to make their own decisions and no more requesting Moscow for permission.
Oh, wow.
When he said that, that's when I understood I was in deep trouble, deep in the middle of the Soviet Union with no pathway to get out.
So at what moment did you realize you had information that might actually help the United States?
Well, leading up to that particular deal, the man that had gone to East Germany, defected, went back, we met up with him, and it was mind-boggling. He had a cave, and that was his office. And he had information stored in canning jars on shelves in this cave. And if anybody's really interested in learning what took place back in that time, there's a book called The Survivor, and that was about how Hitler went after the Jews. And many Jews were forced to make caves. So I don't know what the history of this was in Russia, but I assumed that prisoners had created the cave and then it had been abandoned. But he took us in there through an interpreter, told us he had developed all this technology. 2 days before the press conference, my counterpart, the Soviet coach, came and got me 9 o'clock at night, took me to where his he was fired, and a Soviet army officer had replaced him so they could watch the Latvians and what they were doing. He went to the building where all his records were and took me up to the top floor. Never said a word. Never said where we were going, why we were going. He would just motion with his finger, come. And I walked up in the dark to this floor. It was probably about 10 o'clock at night. He opened up a file drawer. He took out perhaps 6 folders that were just loaded with papers.
Oh, wow.
Walked downstairs to the basement, opened up the furnace. They heated everything with coal heat, and began thumbing through the folders. He would then go through one, throw it in the furnace. When he came to, I think it was the 4th one, he opened it. He pulled out 6 sheets of paper, handwritten in Russian on both sides, handed them to me, threw everything in the furnace. Then he got up, pointed to the door. We walked up the stairs and out the back door. He drove me to a park somewhere, and he said, these papers are extremely important. You must give them to your government. He said, you cannot be caught with these papers. He said, if you were caught with these papers, 2 things will happen, or have to happen. You will either be in prison, sent to Siberia, or you will be executed. So that sort of told me the papers were very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually took the papers back to the hotel. I had a little sandwich baggie. I folded them up, put them in the baggie, and I carried them inside my underwear everywhere I went, including the shower, because you just never knew when they were going to come into your suite. And so these papers were turned over to the U.S. Navy, and it's believed that that was the formula for reducing friction on water and ice.
Oh, wow. Wow. All right. Now, I assume because we're talking about this, that you're no longer working as a spy, right?
Well, that's correct. As soon as they smuggled me out of the country, I lost my job.
So, what's the biggest misconception that movies give people about spies?
I think people glamorize the James Bond concepts, and working as a spy, you're really working undercover, and it's extremely dangerous. And you never know when you're going to be identified. You're, at least in my background, everything is based on survival. And so when you're in a foreign country such as the Soviet Union, that's much different than being in a foreign country like Great Britain. And you're constantly racing to avoid being caught. You're racing to obtain what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And then you're racing to get out of there. So it's not something that's basically physical, although at 3 a.m. when they tried to pick me up, there was a little bit of physical. But I think in general, it's safe to say you're basically trying to stay undercover and survive.
Now, here seems like a good time to take a quick commercial break. Let's hear a word from our sponsors.
So you want to make an ad for your company, right?
Yeah, Tiberius, you want to help me?
Okay, so what's the name of the company?
PPWND.
PP what?
Professional Pressure Washing and Detailing.
So you like clean driveways?
Yeah, like that. We pressure wash commercial buildings and semi-truck and trailers.
So how would someone get a hold of you?
They can visit my site at ppwnd.com or call me at 407-900-7793.
So I just tell them to call you at 407-900-7793 or visit ppwnd.com?
Yeah, Tiberius, you got it.
Cut! That's a wrap! Just use that.
Oak Ridge Gun Range is a family-oriented shooting range that has been in business for over 30 years. They specialize in basic firearm training and offer numerous services such as consignments, gun trades, gunsmithing, and concealed weapon classes. I even got my training for gun safety at Oak Ridge Gun Range. Great customer service, and firearm safety is what they do best. So find out more at Oak Ridge Gun ShootingRange.com.
And we're back here with Norman Miller, international spy and Olympic coach. All right, Norman. So while all this spy stuff is going on, you were also an Olympic bobsledding coach. How did you first get involved with the sport?
Well, in the United States, the only bobsled course at the time was in Lake Placid, New York. And fortunately or unfortunately, I grew up about 30 miles from Lake Placid. So I knew several people that raced bobsleds, but I did not race while I was there. I came down to Albany, New York to college and went to work. And I enjoyed playing handball. And at handball, I was very, very successful. And the connection between handball and bobsledding is bobsledders need to be extremely fast taken off. Handball is a very fast breakaway sport. So I was actually recruited to go into bobsledding, and I knew several people that had done it, so that's how I got involved.
All right. So for people who have never seen it up close, what exactly is bobsledding?
Bobsledding is a sled you can have. Back then you had two people, a driver and a brakeman. You had a cowling on the front, and you had sides. The back was open so the brakeman could get in. And with the four-man, it was just extended, so you'd have four people instead of two. Today they have the mono sleds for women, where just a driver gets in. The difficulty with bobsledding then and now is athletes, you have to keep the weight down to the minimum, but you want to keep it at the maximum for speed. And you sit between two steel bars going back. So each time that bobsled hits the wall, the bumpers hit your hips. And one year during the Olympic trials, I didn't stop racing, but my wife will tell you, I had one leg that was entirely black and blue from the hip to the toes. But you race against time. It was about a minute. And everybody pushes, and the driver gets in, then the second man, third man, then the brakeman, which I was, is the last. You try to get that extra 2 steps in, then get in.
All right. So is it basically a rocket sled made of metal going really, really fast on ice?
Yes. Different tracks around the world are built differently, and some tracks are slower than others. Lake Placid was one of the earlier bobsled tracks, and the speeds got to be unbelievable. And the speeds going down, we were clocked at 96, 97 miles an hour.
Oh, wow.
Not for the entire race,
Well, yeah.
but I think the Swiss actually hit 100 at one point. And what was interesting and how I got involved with the Navy began testing us for the G-forces. Because jet pilots go up and down, make sharp turns. They have G suits, but they're under the stress of G's longer than we were. We had what they called a zigzag turn. You went into the turn about 90 miles an hour, and before you got to it, the driver turned left. You're going straight, you turn left, and then he turns right before he even gets to the turn, because it was so fast, and the blood in your brain goes back and forth. So when you come out, for just a fraction of a second, you black out. And the Navy, when they tested us, discovered we were hitting G-forces of 97 miles an hour, but for a fraction of a second.
I couldn't do that. I could not do that. I would somehow hit my head and black out completely.
Well, the Soviets, when I got over there, they secretly had machines
Who
to
were
put
stealing?
young kids that start them at 10. They would put them through these machines to test their ability to resist G-forces. And if they couldn't resist G-forces, they were taken out of the program.
Wow. Well, did you ever crash?
Well, I don't know how many times I could count them on my fingers. I did.
So what lessons from sports helped you later in life?
I think the greatest lesson in sports actually helped in business because it was a management concept. And what you need to do, you're always observing what's going on. How can I benefit that? How can I improve that? Goal setting is incredible. And so you're doing it for a particular sport, but it carries over into business. And when I separated from the Air Force after 33 years, I started a business called Leadership Management of New York. And I taught CEOs and executives leadership and management skills. And as a coach, you taught leadership and management to the athletes.
All right. So, while being a coach and doing all this crazy work, you find out that the KGB wanted to talk to you. That doesn't sound like a fun meeting. What was going through your mind when you heard that?
Survival. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. They wanted to take me physically, though they didn't touch me. And I told them that if they touched me, there would be a physical deal. And I said, out of the three of you, one of you will not make it. And I was convinced that the first one I would kill, the next two would get me. So I said, you need to decide who's going to be first. And then they tried to calm me down. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm in my pajamas. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. They tried to calm me down. But immediately, survival.
Oh, yeah.
And so I said to them, if you really want to talk to me, come back at 9 o'clock in the morning and I will go with you. I lied to them. At 5 o'clock, they snuck us out of the hotel and smuggled us out of Riga, Latvia.
All right.
And I had the papers with me.
Ah, all right. Well, you ended up being hidden in Estonia for several days. What was that experience like?
Good and bad. They first took us to an abandoned farmhouse. I don't know where it was. Maybe 130 miles from Riga. And we were kept there for maybe 3 hours. Then they took us to Tallinn, Estonia. And the logical place to hide us was in the Communist Party hotel in the middle of Tallinn, Estonia. So we had separate rooms. My room was the worst because it was in the hallway opposite the elevator. You couldn't sleep every time the elevator door would open up. I thought somebody would be knocking on my door. But they would come and get us about 8:30 at night to eat dinner. We'd go downstairs and eat dinner. And then they would take us for a walk through the old parts of Estonia. And the cover of my book, I Spy, is the street we used to go in Tallinn, Estonia. It was built in 1209, and it looks like it was built yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Which is amazing. The masonry, the stones were all very much intact. So we did that for 5 days, and then they came and got us on the 5th night and put us on a ship going to Helsinki, Finland at 7 o'clock at night. And the professor who was with me is telling me, get rid of those papers, get rid of those papers. I said, well, I've come this far, I'll keep them. And if we have to, I'll flush them down the toilet, but I'm going to hold them as long as I can. And they took us across the Baltic Sea to Helsinki, Finland. And there at Helsinki, Finland, the CIA was waiting for us. And we briefed them and explained exactly what was going on. And so the next day we went to London. The next day we flew back to America. And it was probably 2 months later when I got back the CIA called me in Albany, New York, and they said, "We need you to help us." And I said, "Doing what?" They said, "We have the bobsled." I said, "What do you mean you got the bobsled?" "Yes, we got the bobsled out of the airplane factory." They had me take photos, and that was what they were using. And it's in the back of our C-130, and we want to take it down to the David Taylor Research Lab in Bethesda, Maryland, which is the U.S. Navy Research and Development. I asked, I said, "How did you ever get that out?" And they said, "You really don't want to know." So, mind-boggling.
All right, so if you had to do it all over again, what would you do different?
Absolutely nothing. I would do exactly what I did. One of the things about being in the military is you have very, very rigid training. And I think your training helps you to do things you need to do to survive. I wouldn't have done anything different.
All right. Well, if a kid listened today and wanted to be a spy, what advice would you give them?
Go to college, get a degree, become an engineer.
Don't become a spy. Well, on that note, let's take another quick break to pay some bills.
The Tiberius Show would like to thank one of their dedicated sponsors, Custom Designs Orlando. These guys are on Mills Avenue and do all sorts of stuff, ranging from photo ID badges, engraved signs, custom braille ADA signs, vinyl lettering to trophies and awards. The cool part about Custom Designs is they can ship products all over the United States. You can reach them at 407-898-0373 and tell them that
Tiberius
sent you.
Over 40 years, Lighthouse Central Florida has provided education, independent life skills, and job training to thousands of Central Floridians who live with blindness or any degree of vision loss. Whether it's picking out clothes in the morning or just moving around your community and serving Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties, contact Lighthouse Central Florida at 407-898-2483 or visit them online at lighthousecfl.org.
And we're back here with the incredible Norman Miller, spy, Olympic coach, and author. So Norman, you eventually turned your experiences into a book called I Spy. So what made you decide to write that story?
I never, ever had the thought of writing a book. But a friend of mine owned a newspaper. We had lunch once a week. And he decided that from chatting, I had a lot of post-traumatic stress. He said, "Why don't you write it down?" And he said, "In fact, why don't you write a book?" And I said, "Well, I could not write a book." He said, "Just write it down." He said, "I will help you." And he did, and that's how I began writing the book. My wife is extremely good at English, so she perfected what I wrote, and that's why I wrote the book.
All right. So was it difficult to relive some of those moments while writing?
Of course. In fact, I still relive it. This happened back in 87, 88, 89, and you're still reliving it. You just never ever completely get over it.
Yeah. So can I assume that you're not going to get in trouble for telling anyone about your experiences?
Well, I hope I don't. But when I did complete it, I reviewed it, or had the CIA review it, to make sure there was nothing they were uncomfortable with, and they were fine with it. So.
All right. So do people ever tell you that your story sounds like a Hollywood movie?
Yes. In fact, James Bond, a lot of people think it's a James Bond, but it really is nonfiction. It's what actually happened. And I have agents that are out there now looking for financial investors that they're very interested in making a movie out of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you could go back and talk to 15-year-old Norman, what would you tell them?
I would share my experience with them. And I was actually about 15 when this happened to me in high school. I graduated quite young because the war was on. We had no kindergarten. I turned 5 at the end of the spring, and was always struggling with my marks. But as a senior, I had a great teacher, and he sat down with me at the beginning of the year, and he said, if you want to go to college, you need to improve your marks. Would you like to do that? And I said, yes. He taught me how to set goals and how to achieve the goals. And we set a goal of improving my marks. Once a month, he sat with me, and I ended up graduating with honors. But the point of that I never forgot is whatever it is you want to do in life, set goals. And later I had the management company after I retired from the Air Force, and I worked with CEOs and high-level executives, and I taught them the same thing. When you set goals, never set a goal that you can accomplish. Mm-hmm. Set it so it's slightly high. You will, I don't call it failing, you will almost reach it. And then you reset it and make it slightly higher. And then you will accomplish things in life much higher than you ever imagined you would do.
All right. So when you're not working, what do you like to do for fun?
I like to play golf.
Ah, okay. What's your favorite book to read?
Well, I'm reading a book right now called The Survivor. And it's about a young Jewish boy that survived prison camps, concentration camps in World War II. And as a James Bond book, I like Hunt for the Red October. That's right. The James Bond. But the realistic book would be The Survivor, and that's probably something most people would not want to read because it's very, very brutal.
All right. So what was the biggest mistake that you've ever made, and how did it change you as a person?
I think probably the biggest mistake I ever made was driving a bobsled and breaking several bones and going right back to work.
All right. Now, can you tell me that one story, remember, this is a kid's show, but that one story, that you're not supposed to tell me about? Come on, you can tell me.
Well, the one story I think I would tell, kids shouldn't do this, but I actually failed at something. I know it's hard to believe, but I failed. But I never admitted it.
All right. So, do you have like a website or like social media for my listeners that want to follow you?
I have a website. It's called authornormanmiller.com. Tried to make it simple. I'm an author. My name is Norman Miller, so it's authornormanmiller.com.
So what is that one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
You forgot to ask me if young people should get involved in winter sports.
Should they?
I think they should.
All right. So thank you, Norman, for being my special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
Sure.
All right.
Aw, Dad, my computer's slow again and I can't play my games.
Call Your Computer Solutions today, and we will scan for viruses and clean that computer up remotely and make it fast again. Our phone number is 407-826-0810.
Thanks, Dad. My computer's fast again. Now I can do my homework. Thanks for calling Your Computer Solutions at 407-826-0810.
Tiberius' favorite subject, it's Math Corners!
And now it's time for Math Corners. Thank you so much, Norman, for helping me with Math Corners. And this week, we're just more multi-step word problems. My dad is always going to find new problems for me to solve, and today, we're going to work on Olympic bobsled teams and about timing runs and improving performance. All right, so you might be good at this one, maybe. Who knows? All right, so an Olympic bobsled team practices on a track and records the time for 3 runs. On their first run, their time was 62 seconds. On the second run, their time was 60 seconds. And on their third run, their time was 58 seconds. So first, we want to know the average time for all 3 runs. And second, how much did the team improve overall?
Well, first of all, the question is wrong because there's 4 runs. But if they only did it 3, it would be 60.
All right.
And the average time would be 60 seconds.
All right. Now, what about the second part, the percentage of improvement?
I think athletes are obsessed with any sport, obviously, but in bobsledding, to get that extra step. And there's a difference between an extra step that's pushing and an extra step that's holding on.
All right. So first, this is a real world problem because Olympic coaches are always looking at times to see if athletes are improving and how much faster they're getting. But I got a funny feeling that the times are a bit closer. So first, we calculate the average time by adding the 3 runs together. 62 plus 60 plus 58 equals 180 seconds. That was pretty easy. And then we divide the number of runs, which was 3. So 180 divided by 3 equals 60 seconds. So you got that one right.
Yes.
So the average time was 60 seconds. That's pretty good. Now let's figure out how much faster they got from the first run to the third run. The first run was 62 seconds, and the third run was 58 seconds. So we use subtraction. 62 minus 58 equals 4 seconds faster. Now to find the percentage of by the original time, 4 divided by 62 equals about 0.04645. Now we convert that into a percentage by multiplying it by 100. So we move the decimal place over by 2, and we get about 6.45% improvement from each run.
Okay.
Well, I think in the real world that the improvements are usually just by a fraction of a second, not by 2 or 3 seconds. What do you think?
They're never by 2 or 3 seconds. In fact, they're really not by 100ths of a second. They're thousandths of a second. And the difference is when you watch a bobsled come down the run, nobody ever drives a bobsled perfectly and drive it fast. If you drive it slow, you can drive it perfectly.
Yeah.
But when you're driving fast, you're always slightly moving, and just a slight bump of a wall might back the back part of the sled to the eye. You wouldn't even see it, but it's actually sliding on the ice instead of gliding. So everything is measured in thousandths of seconds, and that's why when you watch a run, they may have a faster start, but they may lose that advantage with rubbing the wall or bouncing off the wall.
Well, my teacher said that I would use math every single day. How do you use math during your work?
I use math all the time. I calculate the time that I'm applying to something. My wife says I live on the computer, so I'm always calculating time. I think math and English, if I were giving advice to a young person, would be the 2 biggest areas that they really should focus on.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Norman, for helping me with Math Corners.
Okay.
And now it's time for the Heart of a Lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the heart of a lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and ability. This week, we're going to talk about leadership. For me, I think leadership is the act of loving what is good, having self-control, and being disciplined. The qualities of leadership are providing guidance and direction, organization, and being a positive influence on others. So the other day, I was sitting in my dad's office while he was working on a new advertisement for a pack billboard. A pack billboard has to be designed very carefully because people driving by only see it for a few seconds. One of the people in the office was learning how to create the ad on the computer. My dad showed him how to pick the right picture, make the words big enough to read from far away, and how to edit the colors so the message really stands out. They tried a few different versions, and each time my dad explained what could make it better. He didn't just, do the work himself. He showed them how to do it so that they could learn. That showed leadership to me, because being a good leader doesn't mean just solving the problem. A good leader teaches other people how to do it too, so the whole team gets better. So Norman, do you have an example of leadership that you saw this week?
This week? Yes. I think working with my wife on the golf course, analyzing. We haven't played for a long time because we're from upstate New York, but analyzing each shot from memory, how you should actually make that shot, and then focus on the shot, then try to follow through. Follow through is a big part of leadership. People have ideas on how they want to improve something and fail to follow through. And I think with a young person, don't be afraid to have big ideas, but then develop, as I said earlier, goals on how to follow through with those ideas.
Mm-hmm. So Norman, when you were coaching Olympic athletes, how important was it to show people how to improve instead of just telling them what to do?
Well, when I was doing the Olympic trials, had an athlete, two athletes. One was Herschel Walker, who was a professional football player with Dallas, and the other was Willie Gault, who was a professional football player with the Chicago Bears. They wanted to start racing bobsleds. And each time they would go down and come back, they'd say, "Coach, how did I do?" And I would say, "Well, I want you to watch this person here." And the person would take off, and they would say, "That's exactly what I did." And I would say, "Yes, I know. Now I want to wait a little bit, and I want you to watch this person." And I said, "Tell me what they did that was different." And they were very good. They would instantly tell you, and I said, "That's exactly what you need to do."
Well, we should always try to be lion strong in everything we do, shouldn't we?
Yes.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Norman Miller for being on my show. It has been so much fun talking to you today. I think we learned a lot about your work as an accidental international spy and Olympic coach.
Thank you.
No problem. Do you mind giving your website again for the listeners that want to follow?
AuthorNormanMiller.com.
All right. And also, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Tiberius Show. And I would like to thank WWPR 1490AM, KNC98, Soul Radio 24/7, Easy Way TV, and all these other stations that air on my show. And please be sure to visit The Tiberius Show on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. So, Norman, I'm guessing you're not subscribed, but are you subscribed yet?
Not yet, but I will.
All right. Well, Joe Black says that clip didn't make sense. He just named social media when the guy was talking about music. Great point, Joe Black, but I think the clip was about positive music and how younger people could view it. But I think the guest was pointing out that most young people get their music from social media now. But I could be wrong. Be sure to leave a comment on my videos, and I might even mention yours, like Joe Black's, at the end of the show. Also, be sure to listen to us next week on The Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.